All right, welcome everybody back to Unquestionable with Calvin Smith. I'm Calvin, and I have an awesome guest today. I have Xander Kelley. How you doing, Xander?
I'm doing fairly good. Thank you for having me, Calvin.
Awesome. I'm really happy to have you on. And like I was telling you before we started recording a minute ago, you're a bit of a special case because I typically do interviews with people that have beliefs and everything from aliens to religions. And you're a little bit of a special case, and that I guess I'll let you kind of tell a little bit about yourself. So tell me, maybe take 5 or so minutes just to tell me a little bit about yourself.
Um, sure. Well, I'm kind of a special case in that I was raised a Jehovah's Witness. I no longer am a part of the religious organization, and I haven't been an active member for 5 years.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, I'm one of those weird people that I've got like insider knowledge, but also I don't believe it anymore, and I was questioning it for a while. So lots of fun stories to tell there. I'm also physically disabled, as well as I have some mental illness that
Mhm.
does kind of play into my upbringing, and I am very LGBT, which if you saw me on the streets, I would
Yes.
not look like a Jehovah's Witness or even someone who might have just left them. I am as far opposite in
Yeah.
physical appearance as you can imagine.
Right. Right. Yeah. That's really cool. So we'll kind of talk a little bit about the Jehovah's Witness type of experience for you because I haven't. I've tried to. I guess first things first is you also are a tattoo apprentice too.
Yes,
And
yes.
for the audience who doesn't know, you can check out Xander over at Premier Tattoo Studio in Westland, right? It's Westland.
Allen Park.
Allen Park, that's where it is. Yeah, Allen Park, Michigan. And I have a cool little tattoo that Xander gave me not too long ago. This beautiful flower here, and honestly, I love it. It's really great. So you did a great job there. And
Thank you.
yeah, so I guess for the Jehovah's Witnesses, I guess if you could start from the beginning, what exactly would do the Jehovah's Witnesses believe? Because I haven't done a ton of research on it. I kind of wanted to get a raw reaction as to what exactly they believe. I've studied the Bible and I still do, but I'm having a hard time understanding the connection between Jehovah and Christianity.
Yeah. If you were to ask a Jehovah's Witness, this is kind of a trained response that we've all been taught. We believe that, and I say we, I am no longer a part of them, but Jehovah's Witnesses believe that they are the true Christians. Um, any of them, if you were to ask, they'll say they believe in the Bible. They believe solely on what the Bible says is how they live their life. They believe that they are the only people on earth to be representing God, Jehovah God, as because they choose to use his Hebrew name,
Mm-hmm.
and that they oh God, trying to think about the best way to word it because there's so many complicated wheels. True Christians is the biggest phrase that you will ever hear them say.
Okay.
And that's kind of the ambiguity of it, is just they're true Christians, and that is as far as it goes. But yeah, it's just that they are God's people. They are the only representation on earth, and that they are the ones representing him, his beliefs in the Bible, and that they are the ones who will inherit a paradise, heavenly earth after God destroys all of mankind.
Okay. So do they, if they looked at like I don't know, like a Baptist or something, so would they believe that they aren't true Christians then?
Yes, every other religion, they believe, in some way, shape, or form has kind of diverged from the main path, that they have
Okay.
taken too much liberty in their own interpretation of what the Bible says. So if you are not a Jehovah's Witness, you are therefore not a true Christian, you are not God's children, and that you would perish in Armageddon.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, because yeah, that's that doesn't seem like a healthy way of living. That's just my own opinion. But I right before I got on the call with you, I did just one quick lookup on Jehovah, I guess in general, because I wasn't sure where this name Jehovah was coming from. And from what I understand, they're taking the name Yahweh or the YHWH that's in the Bible, and they're kind of translating it to Jehovah. But from my understanding, the Hebrews didn't have the J sound, the J sound in their language. So, I mean, there's even some websites that are like, we don't know where the heck the Jehovah's Witnesses are getting this name from. Um, so what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I was gonna say I actually was very lucky as a kid. That was one of the questions that I had. Growing up, I have Jewish family, so that was a constant topic of conversation. In the Hebrew language, they do not have vowels. So if you ever look at like the actual language translated to English letters, it would be consonants, which is where the YHWH pronounced Yahweh comes from. And as for Jehovah, they basically did a rough translation to English that the letters would have correlated to JHVH, Yahweh to Jehovah, or something along like a similar pronunciation.
Okay.
And then they just kind of liberally threw in their own vowels as they thought fit to come up with the name.
Interesting. Okay. So you said that you were basically a Jehovah's Witness your entire life. Like, were you born into it, or did your family
Yes.
kind of just join at some point?
I'm actually multi-generational, born into it. My grandmother used to be Jewish, and she was converted when because my father is the youngest of 8 children. There's like an 8-year gap
Wow.
between him and his eldest sister. When his youngest sister, my mistake, when she was about 7 or 8, my aunt was my grandmother was converted to being a Jehovah's Witness. So my father was born into it. None of his other siblings were, and I do believe at this point there is only him and one other of his 8 siblings that is actually a Jehovah's Witness.
Wow.
My grandmother, from the time when she was converted up till her death, was a Jehovah's Witness. My grandfather was not. It was one of those special circumstances, which is something I can also talk
Interesting.
about because relationships is a very interesting dynamic with them.
Yeah.
But my father was born into it. He kind of stepped away for a little bit before coming back after a couple years. My mother was not born into it. She was raised Catholic and was converted in high school, uh, which is a huge thing that I got to listen to. My mother was regularly renowned for her persecution, which is another aspect I can talk about with you too.
Yeah.
But when they got married, they were Jehovah's Witnesses. So me and my younger brother were born into it, and I've been raised, my entire life from birth up until about 18 is when I stopped kind of going of my own
Yeah.
accord. I was an adult; they couldn't force me, and
Right.
I officially walked away when I was 20, so 4 years ago. Uh, but yeah, from birth to 20 years old, I was exposed to them and being
Yeah.
raised in it, and I was even baptized in their organization.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. So I mean, I've heard a lot of things about the Jehovah's Witnesses, and the fact that some even believe that they're a cult, essentially. So, what are your thoughts on the cult label? Do you think that that's fitting or extreme?
I think it does fit. As far as the actual definition of a cult, I think Jehovah's Witnesses are a cult that are trying to make themselves a religion. Just based on numbers, they would be recognized as a religious cult
Yeah.
before an official religion at this point. But I do 100% believe in their mindset. A lot of their behaviors, I've actually been through therapy that have said, like, therapists have told me I should see a cult specialist. That was the first
Wow.
time I had any association with this being a cult. And the more I looked into the stereotypical behaviors of what defines a cult in
Mhm.
itself, I'm fully of the mindset that that is what this is.
Okay. Yeah, that's. I mean, that's sad to hear. I mean, that it's come to that. But what would
Yeah.
I guess, as far as, if you're comfortable, do you have any stories that you would be comfortable sharing to, I guess, positive or negative stories, I guess, regarding the Jehovah's Witnesses in your experience, that may have changed your mind? It may have helped you kind of come out of that belief.
Yeah, I've actually been working on writing a book about my experiences, so
Very
I'm
cool.
very open about what I went through, both positive and negative. One of the first things that happened to me that as a young adult, I was like 11 or 12. When I was a child, outside of this religion, I was sexually assaulted, and it became a huge hot topic within the organization.
Right.
Um, and my father as well has had some legal issues in his past. So the congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses I lived in was very prejudiced against my family. They had a lot of hard beliefs against my father. For an organization that prides themselves on loving everyone and being forgiving, it instantly was something at like, 10, that
Mhm.
as young as like 9 or 10 years old, that I instantly realized this is a little hypocritical. The behaviors, there was a constant problem with whenever anyone from like a higher level in the organization would visit the individual congregations, everyone would change. Their personalities would
Yeah.
completely flip. And seeing that at a young age really cemented in my mind that, maybe this isn't all that they're trying to crack it up to be. I do remember too, when I was like 11 or 12, I had issues with sexual assault, which is a very difficult topic to talk about, but it
Right.
is one that is on the forefront when Jehovah's Witnesses gets mentioned.
Mm.
A Another child in the congregation happened to assault me, and when I brought it up to the elders' attention that, hey, I didn't want legal trouble, I just was of the mindset that like, I don't think this is the right behavior. I think this is something that should be addressed. I'd been through therapy at that point, so like maybe this kid needs to see a therapist. But because her father or her grandfather was an elder in the congregation, they kind of demonized me.
Right.
They pushed for me to get baptized. Jehovah's Witnesses do not believe in baptism at birth. It's kind of like a consensual thing. They
Okay.
want people to be old enough to understand and comprehend, and there's a
Okay.
multi-step process. Um, but at like 12 or 13 years old, they pushed me to start moving towards being baptized. Being raised in their congregation, they felt that by the time I was entering my teens, that I was too old to have not been baptized yet. And then the
Hmm.
moment I did, I kind of got it was like a witch hunt. There was a lot of harsh behavior towards me for no reason. Rumors were spiraling and like just going around about
Hmm.
behaviors that I may or may not have been doing. Spoiler alert, I was not doing it. But they, saying that I was smoking and engaging in sexual activity, and that I was
Right.
shoplifting and doing all these bad teen things. And anytime I reached out to anybody, because we're taught in the organization that we go to the elders. We don't go to the police. We go to the elders. Anytime I brought it up to them, it kind of turned into a like gaslighting session of that it was my fault that I was getting treated this way, that I had no proof that people were saying this. I had no proof that I wasn't doing the things that they were saying.
Right.
And that was really the hard moment for me. Like 13 years old, I wanted nothing to do with this organization, which made it very hard because my parents still obviously made me go. But that was the
Right.
first moment, the hypocrisy and the nastiness that I saw inside that really made me go, I don't think they're practicing what they're preaching here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's funny that you mentioned that they would like change essentially how they acted when these higher ups would come. It's almost like, I work at a grocery store, and it's like when the district manager comes by, everyone's like freaking out and needs to get everything ready and to do better. And it's like it's weird that it's that same kind of. It seems like it's the same kind of situation there.
Oh, it's exactly the same. Now, as an adult who has worked in retail, I have often described it as that if anyone has worked retail or food service or customer service, you are probably familiar with the not ideal working conditions that you deal with. And then the
Yeah.
moment someone from district, or corporate shows up, everything is spotless. The schedule is perfect. Things like breaks are taken perfectly fine. It's that same feeling and that same phenomena of that everything has to be perfect when watched under a spyglass. But the
Yeah.
moment that person from corporate leaves, the store's going back to
Right.
disarray.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, wow. It seems like a disingenuous way of practicing. But so I know that Jehovah's Witnesses also do this, like they do the door-to-door thing, right? They like go to, I mean, essentially their neighborhood, and they knock on people's doors and, hey, do you want to talk about Jesus? Did you participate in any of that?
Yes. Everyone knows Jehovah's Witnesses for the field service. That's what they refer to it as field service. It's they hop in a car. We're given every Saturday. It was expected of me from probably birth. I was going out with my parents, but as long as I can remember, it was a thing. Every Saturday morning, we would go up to the Kingdom Hall. We would have our before service meeting. We'd get out into groups, and they had maps, territories that they called them,
Yeah.
where you were basically expected to this location, to this neighborhood. You hit up all the houses, mark them off that they had been, that you had witnessed there, and that you had preached and done your good deed for the for the day.
Okay.
Um, and it was a regular thing that they would have kids come out, and it wasn't just I wouldn't just be sitting, I wouldn't just be in the car, I wouldn't be standing next to my mom and dad. They would rehearse things with me and get me to learn to say stuff, and they would regularly use kids to pull people into their services.
Oh yeah, okay. Because I mean, how can you say no to a kid? I mean, that's wow, that's a good hook there.
Yeah,
What
they
ex- what?
used
Ex-
to. They don't do this anymore, but they used to ask for donations too.
oh,
The entire organization, they claim, is funded off of donations, and they used to, when we would go out in service, have all of the kids. That was their job. We would say hello. We would ask if they'd be interested in reading the pamphlet. Then we'd let our parents or the adult do all the talking, and then at the end, we'd ask. They had the kids instructed to ask, would you be willing to make a donation to our congregation?
oh, yeah. They have the kids say it, so it's wow. Look at they got that. They have it down packed. They know exactly what they're doing. Um, so wow. What I guess what books of the Bible did you guys follow? Did you follow everything from like the beginning of the Old Testament to the end of the New Testament, or did you cut out any books in there?
Um, it's kind of hard. This is one of those fuzzy areas. They do read the entire Bible, but they read their own translation.
Mm,
They had anyone who's familiar with Bible history and like religious history would probably know that the King James has been altered from the original text.
yes.
So the Jehovah's Witnesses never used the King James or any variants that came off of the King James Bible.
Mm,
Instead, they claimed that they would take the original Hebrew and Greek texts and translate them to English. And even later still, they made another adjustment where they translated it for context, because some of the stuff written in the Bible doesn't contextually apply internationally. As we know, like cultures are so different,
yeah.
foods are different, like just social statuses have different symbols around the world. So we did read the entire Bible, Genesis all the way to Revolution. It actually was a challenge for the kids on numerous occasions to see how far we could read, how long we could memorize the names of the Bibles in order, of the Bible books, and then
Wow.
um, they would make songs based off of scriptures for us to sing. Everything that we did revolved around the Bible, but specifically their translation. So you kind of had to take it, especially as I grew up and became critical, I had to take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
I still to this day, it's not known if anything was taken out, but it definitely doesn't look good on them to
Yeah.
hear that it's their own version of the Bible that they use.
Right, right. And did you believe that all of these stories and accounts and miracles in the Bible were actually true, or did you have doubts about any of them? I mean, were you asking questions to anybody?
At first, I had that childlike fairyhood moment. We didn't have fairy tale stories. Anything magic related was not something I grew up with.
Hmm.
So that was my fairy tales. It was something magical and just
Right,
extraordinary. And there
right.
was no way it could be real, but that's why I wanted to believe it.
I
And
gotcha.
then as I got into my teens and I started listening to stuff, it was no longer just me sitting in the kingdom doodling. I would actually have to pay attention to like what they were talking about and reading and doing research. I did start to question some of them. The story of Noah's Ark has always been the big one that I've looked at
Yes.
because I'm a huge scientific person. In fact, I regularly had joked with my father. He was proud of how logical I was and how much I focused on science and logic in any decision I made, in any thought process I had. So it was kind of an ironic thing that they never saw it coming, that I didn't want to
Mhm.
stick with them. But I regularly ask questions about Noah's Ark specifically because there has never been any scientific proof of this flood. That there have been instances of intense water marks that we can find historically,
Yes.
but there's never been any instance of an ark lodged on top of a mountain,
Right, right.
never to be moved. There would be decrepit or decaying parts somewhere, and there's just no signs of it. That
Yeah.
was the first time that I was like, I don't know if this is really that magical.
Right. And when was that kind of revelation? Like, about how old were you when you started kind of having those first initial seeds of doubt?
When I started questioning the stories in the Bible, I was about 11. So right around the time that they started pushing me to get baptized, I started having these doubts, which to this day, I still think that they pushed me to be baptized to kind of silence those
Yeah,
questions I was having.
right.
Um, but it was around that time I was in middle school. I started taking more science classes, more history courses, and I've always been a science and a history buff. So the fact
Right.
that I started getting into this at that time really started pushing me to have questions about Noah's Ark. And then I started questioning about Lazarus and the possibility of a human, even if you were dead for 3 days. I know how decomposition works. There's no way you'd be able to come, even with primitive forms of preserving. There's just no way you'd be able to survive that. I Yeah, I was like in middle school when I started
Yeah.
having all of these thoughts going through my head about it.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of the same thing for myself. I was kind of unsure of what I believed up until I was about 18, 19, 20-ish. And then I was like, screw it, I'm going to sit down and pick up the Bible. And I picked it up. And by the time I was done with it, I was like, I don't believe a word this thing says. Um, but yeah. So do you keep in contact with anyone at the church? Like, if you're comfortable sharing, do you have a relationship with your father still?
This is where it starts getting very gray area. In general, the Jehovah's Witnesses believe that if you have chosen to walk away from their organization, or you have made a mistake that you're not repentful for, you get disfellowshipped, which basically means you're dead. You do not exist to them. They
Yeah.
don't talk about you, they don't talk to you. They do have some gray areas in that if it is an immediate family member, depending on each person's level of comfort, they can still contact them. They just can't talk about religion with them.
Okay.
My family is still kind of in a state of denial. My
Mhm.
mother still fully believes that this is a phase and I'm going to come back. My father has accepted it. I do talk with him. We've had a really rough relationship since I moved out and walked away from the truth. My brother and I actually have a much stronger relationship than I had when I was at home and
Well,
going to
that's good.
church. Um, he actually is now walking away from the organization and trying to get away from it, which my mom
Okay.
is not happy about. Uh, but my mother is in full denial. She told the church that, because I technically would be worse than disfellowshipped, I would be an apostate because I have
Mm,
actively chosen to disregard everything that they taught me. I
yes.
shun my baptism, I've revoked it, and I speak out publicly of what they put me through. And
Yeah.
in that case, they shouldn't talk to me at all. But my mom started playing the mental illness card. When I was 19, I was diagnosed with a form of schizophrenia. So she has milked that to the absolute level. I'm on
Wow.
medication. I am
Yeah.
perfectly sane, but she has convinced them that I was never sane as a child and my baptism shouldn't exist. And that is the only way they are able to keep in contact with me.
Yeah. I mean, it's sad that to hear that. And I mean, I'm glad to hear that you are still sane, because I mean, like,
Yeah.
that's traumatizing. I mean, to have your family totally turn against you for something that, I mean, really is almost out of your control. I mean, you can't really help if you have doubts. It just kind of happens. But yeah, I mean, that's really sad. But so I know that you are yourself, you're fluid in your gender identity. How did that impact? I mean, were you out in that sense while you were with the Jehovah's Witnesses?
No, I did not come out fully until I had walked away from them entirely. One of the first things I started questioning, actually, kind of looking back on, I definitely realize now was a gender question. I didn't understand the dress code. As
Oh, okay.
funny as that
The dress
sounds, I
code.
did not understand why, being here in America specifically, women had to wear dresses and skirts and heels, and
Mhm.
men could wear suits and ties. But if that was considered formal wear, if the Bible says that you needed to dress up, my question was always, formal wear is different depending on which part of the world you're in because of so many different cultures. And we would regularly have books that would have pictures of people from congregations all over the world, and I
Mhm.
would be seeing men in robes and women in saris and kimonos. And my question then became, why do I have to wear a skirt? Why
Right.
couldn't I wear pants if that's considered formal in India? Or, and
Right.
anytime I brought that up, I instantly was shot down. They were like, just don't think about it. It's up to Jehovah. Only God knows the answer. Or I would be told to go read the scripture again as if that was not where the confusion came from.
Yeah.
Um, I started experimenting with my sexual identity while I was still in the congregation, while I was a teenager. It was very hush hush. I did not let anybody know what I was doing. Um,
Mhm.
and it kind of came to bite me in the butt. The girl that was engaging in very uh, I'll just say illegal sexual behaviors with me.
Okay.
She found out that I was experimenting with some of the girls from my school and used that as fuel to the fire that
Oh,
I was, it wasn't that she was assaulting me, it was something with me that I was coming onto her. And it was
okay.
a thing and a half. And after that, I kind of just went fully into the closet. I kept all my stuff online. I did not talk to anybody. And it wasn't until I got into college that I actually started experimenting with my gender and my sexuality more openly because I was away from the Jehovah's Witnesses almost entirely in that sense.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, man, the more I hear about your story, the sadder I'm getting. But but I'm glad that I'm learning more about this. I mean, I would almost consider them a cult with you. But I have a hard time putting that label on things because it's such a harsh term. But I mean, just based off of what you've told me so far, it's not looking too good. But so another thing that I want to get a little bit of clarification on is the Jehovah's Witnesses don't celebrate Christmas, right?
No, they don't celebrate any holidays or even birthdays. Birthdays is the weirdest one for an explanation. The only thing I've ever been told about it is that, well, three of God's servants died at birthday parties in the Bible. So we do not do birthdays anymore, which never made sense to me. Um, as far as like any other holiday goes, it was looked at since most holidays do have pagan roots that they come from.
Right, right.
And anyone, again, look at the history of religion, you'll see where Christianity has adopted pagan traditions to kind of fit the people in that area that they were trying to indoctrinate. So Jehovah's Witnesses don't celebrate any holidays, they none. I think
Wow.
wedding anniversaries was the only thing that was known for, like, we would have a party for, but that was it.
Yeah, I mean, it's really weird because I mean, like before I came on this call with you, I watched one quick video and I read that blip in the Bible that there was a Jehovah's Witness that was talking to the news and he said that they believe that Jesus wasn't really born on the 25th of December and that everyone knows that, and which is, I mean, it's true. It's pretty well consensus, at least among non-believers and such, that he wasn't really born on December 25th. Yeah, it's just it's really weird that they would believe that type and that they call funerals like memorials, right? I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
It was always weird. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they honor the memorial of Jesus Christ every year. So any funeral that you went to was a memorial service,
Hmm.
because you're honoring someone who has passed on,
Yeah.
which they never really felt like a funeral. I'm going to be honest. I've been to funerals as a kid and now as an adult that are not in any association with Jehovah's Witnesses, and it's nothing like what they do. It's basically just an extra church ceremony with a
Yeah.
body up front.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, way to put emphasis on, because I mean that's a big pet peeve with me when I go to funerals for loved ones and such, and they basically just make it a sermon. That it just drives me crazy. I mean, if the person who passed away, that was their wish, was for that to happen, and so be it. I mean, if someone's dead, just honor them. That's what they want to do. But a lot of people that I know that have passed away recently were, either didn't care about belief or they were straight up non-believers. And yet it turns into a church sermon about God and Jesus and why, and it's so disrespectful in my opinion.
I share the same opinion on that. Yeah, it never sat well with me as a kid. Even if it was someone who was a Jehovah's Witness, it just something about it seemed a little perverted that they would turn it as an opportunity to try to indoctrinate more people.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So I guess what was the final straw? Like, what was the thing? I mean, if there was one single thing, it may have been a very large process of many things, but when was like the moment when you said, I don't think that this is real? I don't believe in this. When was that moment? And kind of what happened in that realization?
When I was 16, and this is something that I am open about as a mental health advocate as well, I had attempted suicide. And I am much better now, thankfully. But at that point, things were very dark for me. I had gone to the Kingdom Hall on my own, and I had seen, people were calling. There's like one instance that still sticks out of my mind of a grown adult telling me, a 16-year-old child, that I looked like a whore because of the lipstick color I chose to wear. It
Wow.
was it was a dark maroon, if anyone wants
Wow.
to know. Um, and just the over sexualization of children in general and my body was starting to wear on me, and I got no remorse, like no freedom from school. I had people, um I had death threats sent to me by people I went to school with when they found out that my parents were Jehovah's Witnesses. And the Kingdom Hall at that point was saying, well, you should wear it with a badge of honor that you're being persecuted. And I couldn't take it. I attempted suicide, and my dad, his answer, instead of getting me the help I needed and listening to me, he moved me 4 states away,
Jesus.
to finish
Okay.
out my high school. And it was at that point when I went down to Tennessee and I was living there, I was very angry, and I spent all summer in 90-degree weather, kind of mulling over like the past 8 months of my life. And it was at that point that I realized none of this is what it looks like to outsiders. I had a lot of health issues going on, from within the congregation. The hypocrisy was so strong. The Bible says that you're supposed to take care of the weak and the feeble. And I wouldn't be able to go to meetings regularly or go out in service because of my physical health problems. And instead of getting support or encouragement, I got berated and abused.
Yeah.
Um, and it just was that moment of realization for me that nothing inside the organization is worth staying for. If I'm dealing with all of this from outside and they want me to wear it with pride, I value my own health and life too much to do that. Um, I went to one final meeting kind of to see if I still felt the same way. And the topic that night was on self love. And I'll never forget it. The brother up at the podium giving the talk was talking about the different types of love and had said, as Jehovah's Witnesses, if we had any love for ourselves as a person, it was blasphemy against God. That if
Mhm.
you valued your own health, your own mental well being, physical well being, even your spiritual and emotional well being, and you decided that there was something involving Jehovah that was it was putting that at risk, you had no room in your heart for him, and it was blasphemous, and that you should repent because you would basically be killed in Armageddon if you didn't.
Wow.
That was the moment for me that I really remember it was cemented in that I never wanted to step foot in a Kingdom Hall ever again. And I found every excuse under the sun to not go with my family until I was able to move out 3 years later.
Yeah. Yeah. I can imagine. That's, I mean, it's terrible. I mean, I mean, I'm glad that you're doing much better now, and you know, you're healthy and everything, and it's terrible that that experience led you to attempt suicide. I mean, that's worst case scenario, and so I mean, that's really sad. I do agree. Where I guess on a scale from 0 to 100%, where do you stand now on your belief of a God or Jehovah, or that Jesus was the Son of God, whatever it may be, Buddha? I don't know. On a scale from 0 to 100%, how confident are you that any God exists now?
If the phrase is God, I would have to say zero. I am of the mindset now that there might be something that connects. Even if it's something that we all individually believe, self-fulfilling prophecy is still prophecy to me.
Mm-hmm.
I do believe that there might be some energy force that unites all things in the universe, but I wouldn't go so far as to giving a name or an entity to it. I think that's too much credit for
Okay.
all of life. Uh, but yeah, if you were to ask me if I believed in Jesus, if I believed in the Bible, I'd say 10% of me believes it because I do believe he might have been a real person. I believe he
Yeah.
might have just been some cool carpenter dude that people
Right.
just,
Exactly.
his mom slept with someone outside of wedlock and the story just ran for way too long,
Yeah. Yeah.
snowballed out of control. But I don't believe that he committed, like, that he performed miracles. I don't believe that there is a Hebrew God that can explain everything, because even the Bible doesn't explain everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I do believe that there might be something that
Okay.
can be a uniting force, whether you want to believe that's just life force in general or energy from the
Yeah.
sun.
Okay. So what are your thoughts on an afterlife then? Do you think that there's any type of afterlife or anything like that afterwards?
Being raised a Jehovah's Witness has stunted my view of death. I regularly talk about I have a hard time comprehending grief,
Mm-hmm.
because Jehovah's Witnesses don't grieve. It's when someone dies, it's, oh, you'll see him again. There'll
Right,
be a
right. No
resurrection.
big deal. Yeah.
So there's never really been a sense of permanence in my head. Uh, if I were to imagine it right now, all I can think is nothing. You don't, and it's not like a nothing like you're floating through space.
Mm-hmm.
It just stops. The
Yeah.
clock stops ticking. Um, there are days that I like to have that comfort of that solace of knowing that human life is not as insignificant as it is,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe reincarnation is a thing. But no, at the end of the day, the most common feeling that I have is just when it stops, it stops. There's nothing. You
Yeah.
return to the earth and rot in the ground, and that is that.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I'm kind of at that standpoint to where, you don't remember what happened before you were born. It's going to be the same thing. You just kind of became conscious and had this long-term, short-term memory one day. You don't remember what happened when you were 3. I just kind of feel like you probably won't even realize that you're dead, essentially. So I've kind of came to terms with that, to where I'm comfortable with it, and I have that permanence in my head, like you mentioned, to where I don't have an afterlife to see this person again. The time that I had with this person is all that I'm gonna have with them, and I can cherish those memories for as long as I'm around and pass the memories on. But that person's not gonna be there when I eventually pass away, and I'm not gonna be there either. So yeah, I'm kind of at that same standpoint. Do you ever have doubts about what you believe? Do you ever kind of go back and kind of think like, well, maybe Noah's flood did happen. This, maybe you read something on the internet that was like, wow, there's seashells on the top of this mountain in Turkey. Weird. Do you ever have those doubts?
I've had a couple. They're more like fleeting thoughts. That is one of the reasons I think Jehovah's Witnesses are a cult. The indoctrination that they do is very Midsummer-esque. In anytime someone expresses doubts, they shower them with love. They have get-togethers and shepherding calls is what they referred to it as, where they come and they talk to you and they read scriptures and they just drill it into your head that you can't leave. And I think anytime I have fleeting doubts is residual of that. That little voice in the back of my head, it gets quieter and quieter each year that I'm away from them. But I do have those moments where I wonder. There are little things in the Bible that I do hear on occasion that there's some scientific fact for. I still think the Bible is a highly exaggerated version of what actually happened. But I do still deal with it. I would never say it's something that would make me question my beliefs now or even think if I made the right decision walking away. I purely believe that it is just residual trauma from being raised in a religious cult.
Right. I mean, indoctrination, I've heard of even people who have been atheists for 20, 30 years, and they still look at the Bible and they're like, what the hell? There's no way. But so, I mean, I don't know if, even for myself too, sometimes someone will bring something up in the Bible and I'll go, what? That doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, that's, I don't understand how that could be possible. And, maybe I don't find an answer for it. And, it leaves me questioning, but all in all, I'm not going to turn and say, oh, well, I can't explain it, therefore it is God. I'm going to look at it as I just can't explain that yet. I don't know whether it was God or not. If someone can prove to me it was, great. If not, great. I'm open to it, but so far it's not looking too good. I not too much approved for any type of God or gods, in my opinion. But
yeah, I try to look at life through that lens too. Just that idea that, if magic was just science we couldn't explain yet, then maybe if you don't understand it, maybe don't be a fluffy bunny and just assume that there's a higher spiritual power making it happen.
Right.
My father used to regularly, in one of his attempts to try to get me to stay, is he would tell me of a miracle that happened to him when he was younger.
Okay.
That he was walking out late at night. You can tell I've been told this story a million times. He was walking alone late at night in the dark. It was pitch black. There was no moon. You couldn't even see the nose on your face kind of darkness.
Yeah.
And he was freaked out that he was like, I didn't think I was going to make it home that night. I didn't think I was going to ever see my way through the dark. First off, it's the nighttime. Don't be melodramatic.
The sun come
up. Second, his response to me was, well, I sat down on a rock and I closed my eyes, and for 10 minutes, I prayed and I prayed just to let God show me the way home. And when I opened my eyes, I could see. And every time he told me that, my biggest regret in life is that I didn't have the confidence to tell him this. But Father, that's just science. If you close your eyes in a dark room, your eyes will adjust to the darkness, right, and therefore you can see better.
Exactly.
I've always had that mindset ever since he started telling me that, though, that maybe I should start looking at things in a wider lens.
Yeah, it's or maybe outside, maybe there was a cloud in front of the moon or something. So it was really dark and the cloud moved when you close your eyes.
Yeah.
Maybe the sun was coming up and, a little bit of, maybe there was some car headlights. I don't know.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's definitely a philosophy I've lived by now, that anytime I see something that makes that voice pop up, I've gotten in the habit of telling myself, no, just because I can't explain it right now doesn't mean somebody else who knows more than me on the subject can't. And it doesn't mean that there's a God that is causing this.
Right. I agree. I won't hold you up for too much longer. I did want to ask just real quick, before we kind of wrap this up, is what are your thoughts on ghosts and aliens, cryptids? Do you think that any of this stuff is real?
To a degree. The universe is too big to not have some form of life somewhere. I don't think it's little green men from Mars.
Mm-hmm.
but I do believe that there is a possibility that somewhere out there we just haven't found it yet, that there could be life. You know,
Definitely.
you dip a bucket of water in the ocean, just because you don't pull up a sea creature doesn't mean there's not sea creatures.
Yes.
Um, Ghosts, I have a harder time feeling. I do feel like people can leave bad energy. You know, you ever walk into some place and you're like, ooh, I'm getting bad vibes.
Right.
I
Right.
don't know if it's necessarily the soul of the dead, but I do feel that if enough bad shit happens in one place, that we have a sixth sense as predator and prey animals by nature to pick up on it.
Yeah.
And I
Okay.
do also believe in cryptids. Again, not to the level that they are shown in media, but I believe that it's possible that there were animals that we've driven to extinction. I believe it's possible that if we find fossilized remains, we're just putting them together wrong. You know, we didn't know what
Yeah.
an iguanodon looked like for like 100 years.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think it's possible, just not necessarily in the way media portrays it. I think in a more scientific sense, there is way too much that we still don't know about our own planet. So anything is possible. You know, the lack of evidence does not mean that it doesn't exist. And I
Mhm.
feel the same way about aliens, just, you know, not little Martian men.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm kind of in the same boat as far as like aliens go. If even I'm open to bacterial life. If there's a bacteria on another planet, that's an alien. You know, if there's a bird on a different planet, that's an alien. You know, and the chances are just it's maybe there's not any intelligent life like humanoid life. I could get behind that, but the chances of there not being something at least microbial on another planet, there's just
Yeah.
no way, in my opinion.
Yeah. And who are humans to define what intelligence?
Exactly. Who's to say maybe this um, microbial life is smarter than humans? Who knows? But still there. I think you're breaking up a little bit. Hello. Okay, breaking up a little bit. I don't know if you can hear me.
Oh,
Can you hear
yeah,
me?
there we go.
Okay, cool. I have you now. Okay, my internet must have just screwed up for a second there, but that's okay. We're about to wrap it up here in a second. So yeah, I guess before I go, I appreciate you coming on for one. This was a really awesome talk, really enlightening. I learned a ton about Jehovah's Witnesses, and I appreciate you sharing your story with me and being that open about it. It takes a lot of bravery to talk about those types of experiences you had, and I commend you for it and coming on and
Yeah.
talking about it.
Yeah, thank you for having me and giving me an opportunity to talk about this. Not enough people know what happens to Jehovah's Witnesses because the culture is literally, not to make a pun off of culture, it's literally designed to teach us not to talk about it when we walk away. So there's a lot of people that need that reassurance that they're not alone. And I think there's a lot more people that could do a lot more good to stop some of the predatory behaviors of this organization if they only knew what was happening on the inside.
Absolutely. And that's exactly why I wanted to have you on the show, because I didn't think I'd be able to get a real practicing Jehovah's Witness on the show. I highly
Oh,
doubt
no.
one would ever be able to come on here. So I figured, what, but when I was getting my tattoo from you and you mentioned that you were ex-Jehovah's Witness, I was like, yes, you are on, dude. I need to talk to you. But yeah, thanks so much for coming on. And is there anything before you go that you wanted to plug? I know you said you were working on a book, and anything of that matter you wanted to plug for yourself before you go?
I don't have it like nothing that I can concrete say is being published yet. I'm still bouncing around between a couple publishers. And this isn't really a plug for myself, but if you ever want to look up some more info about Jehovah's Witness from an ex-Jehovah's Witness point of view, child abuse is a huge topic of conversation right now as light is being shown on this organization from outside government sources. There is a show that is called Cults and Extreme Beliefs on Hulu that does an episode, and not to like, they don't sponsor me or anything like that,
Mm-hmm.
but it is very informative, just from that aspect, as the person they have as a survivor of sexual assault and child abuse in general, and it gives another really nice input into the struggle of trying to walk away from the organization
Mm-hmm.
too. Like, they will not acknowledge people who have chosen to step away from them. So it's just another good, like, informative source. It's like an hour long episode. Highly recommend it if you ever have, some downtime and some curiosity. And yeah, if once I get that book published and start getting some deets, I will absolutely send you some info.
Yeah, for sure. I would definitely be sure to pick it up, and I need to get your signature on it too, so I get it all
Yeah.
signed and approved. So when you become big and famous, I can sell it for millions. But, yeah.
And you'll
Thanks
have the
again for
tattoo
coming.
too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thanks again for coming on. And once again, before I leave, I want to just plug freedomfromreligion.com as well. Anyone who may be questioning or doubts their belief, or just has, just questions in general about belief, and maybe has some doubts, check out Freedom from Religion. They really can help you out, and possibly getting on a different path and to a better truth, I guess. But with that, Xander, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I'll make sure to link everything about you that you want me to in the description of the podcast. And once again, I hope to have you on again. Maybe we can have a conversation about something different. Maybe we can break down some other beliefs that you may or may not have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Xander. I really appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for listening. You can check me out on Facebook, Unquestionable Podcast, Unquestionable with Calvin Smith. I'm on YouTube, Instagram at Unquestionable Podcast. You can check me out on Discord, which I'll link all in the description of the podcast. But that's it for today, guys. Thank you, Xander. I will talk to you again.